welcome to Zach Talks Hawks. I'm excited to be back here with you. Apologies for not getting your Tuesday Seahawk recap out to you. I was able to sit down quickly and get this one done for your Week 9 prediction show here. Really pumped to talk to you here on Zach Talks Hawks, the place where we come and talk Seahawk football. Work's been a little crazy lately, and it's been kind of hard to sit down on Monday night and be able to get your Tuesday show recorded and out for you. But I'm glad we're able to consistently do this show. I think this one, out of the two that we do every week, is more important. So it gives us a bit of a glimpse of what is to come for Seahawk football, as well as the rest of the NFL. As you can see on the rundown, over here, you can see we're going to be talking about Seattle's Week 9 matchup, a very important game with the Los Angeles Rams. We're also going to be talking about the keys to victory. What does Seattle need to do in order to bounce back from an abysmal game against the Buffalo Bills, flip the script, and come out on top against a divisional opponent with the Rams walking into town? And then we're going to make our predictions. Had a pretty awesome week last week, actually. Went 10-6. I'm looking at my cheat sheet. 10-6 last week for predictions. That's really good for us here on the channel. Kind of gave us a little bit of breathing room. We were 500 last week. Now we're 4 games above 500, marching into the second half of the season. Super confident to make some of these picks here with you momentarily with the rest of the NFL. But before we talk about the rest of the games, let's get to, at least for me, and I'm sure for some of you watching, the most important game. Seattle trying to bounce back from an abysmal shellacking against the Buffalo Bills, and they're going to be playing the Los Angeles Rams. And look, the Rams were able to fend off, I guess, destruction rumors last week. I'm trying to find them here on my cheat sheet here. Being able to win against the Minnesota Vikings. It's crazy. Last week, 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how Cooper Kupp trades, Matthew Stafford possibly being moved from this team, and the Rams are finding themselves at 3-4 with a bit of hope in a division in football where nobody's really running away from this thing. Really excited to see this matchup as the Rams come into town to play the Seattle Seahawks. And really, for the Rams, this is a must-win game on paper. I think they need this win in order to bolster some playoff hopes for them. But in my mind, even though they are tied, right? The NFC West right now is just sort of finicky with buys and things like that. But generally speaking, they are tied right now for the top of the NFC West with the Niners on bye this week. The Seahawks are looking to move into a place where they grab a divisional win. They control the West. They'll go 1-0 in division play. They'll match what the Cardinals have already done, and they'll be de facto tied with Arizona moving into next week if Arizona also wins, and we'll get to them here in a little while. But to lay it all out there for you, this is a really important game for Seattle, and I was able to talk with Joe Stevens on our Tuesday live show over on his channel, Seahawk Talk, and I threw this out there. This game for Seattle sort of feels like what the Atlanta game was for Seattle. They weren't obviously in a must-win situation. It wasn't like if they lost it, they were out of the playoffs, but it just felt like the team absolutely needed to win. And we're right back here, I think. We're right back here again with a divisional opponent coming into town. Everything's sort of tied in the West. Seattle got shellacked last week against Buffalo. Kind of talked about on the show last week. That's something we should expect as Seahawks fans. Buffalo's a really good team. Seattle's not to their tier. They're not to their capability. 7.5 times out of 10, Seattle winds up losing that game. They did. It was unfortunately one of those times where Seattle loses big. And now you're going to get a Rams team coming into town that seems pretty able to get a win in Seattle, especially now with how the the fans are divided is seemingly every home game for Seattle. It just seems that there's more and more folks for the opposing team sitting in the stands. We talked about that on Joe Stevens' show as well. Issues with Ticketmaster and just being able to resell and resell to whoever, which if you're more than likely going to sell to a visitor than you will somebody who is from Seattle on a whim trying to get home. Trying to get a home game. And it's been a problem for this team. Sort of when things go sideways at home, it starts to feel like an away game for them. We saw cracks in Gino's game last week. He needed to be comforted on the sideline. There are some reasons to smile when it comes to this team this week. And I think that will move really nicely into our keys to victory. My first key to victory for Seattle is that the injured players coming back need to show up this week. DK Metcalf projected to come back. McDonald able to say way back on Tuesday that DK looks really good. He's very, very hopeful that he's going to come back this week and things are going to be okay in really a game that they need DK Metcalf to really perform very well in. Had talks this week about Abraham Lucas joining into the fold with as well as George Fant. So both right tackles for Seattle are starting to get some playing time. We know Abe Lucas has been out for a long time, and we don't really know what he looks like, but we do know what George Fant looks like in this team. I guess in a Seattle uniform, he was able to play one game earlier this season and was able to play well. He's familiar with the team itself, so maybe not necessarily with this offensive line, but they need somebody to come in and bolster some offensive line help. The rookie Jarrell has been serviceable at right tackle. He's been better than Stone Forsythe, but I think either Fant or Abe Lucas could be an upgrade there. Be anxious to see if they get playing time at all this week. I don't know, but it also sounds like some members of the secondary are pretty close to coming back. All of these players, which are coming back from injury, need to show the NFL that, hey, when they're healthy, Seattle is a good team. And they lack that, to be totally honest, I think, at their worst last week against Buffalo. So what is this team going to look like with those folks coming back? My second key to victory for Seattle this week as they square off against the Rams is that you need to get the running game going and actually try to stick with it. Look, this season has been one where it's just been really frustrating for me as a Seahawks fan. I was all in on just letting Gino thrive and be a part of this Grubb offense and see what he can do in a creative pass-heavy scheme, and it has backfired greatly. If you've watched the games, you know that Gino's not necessarily the problem, but when there's no play action to play off of, when there's no creativity in terms of how you're going to use the run to set up the pass, when that's not available, it just seems like Grubb tries the run very early in the game and just simply abandons it when it doesn't work. You saw that last week against Buffalo. The guard play for Seattle has been terrible, especially in establishing the run. And this team has got to figure out how to get Kenneth Walker the ball way more often than he is. We saw 2 weeks ago against the Falcons, Seattle incorporated him coming out of the backfield in the passing game. That was extremely effective. Talked about that last week going into the Buffalo game. You got to keep doing that if you're not going to run the ball. Well, what'd they do? They swung him out wide. They made sure that he was a wide receiver instead of a running back coming out of the backfield, trying to get him touches that way. He wasn't open. That kind of stuff doesn't work because you're able to get a nickel corner on him instead of maybe a bulkier linebacker that can't keep up with him. You got to play the match as well if you're going to abandon the run. Grubb hasn't been able to do that, so the alternative is let's establish the run. Let's try to run more than 25 yards in a game and just stick with it. See if it works. But it all happens up front, and this guard play for the Seattle Seahawks is really, really struggling right now. I'm anxious to see how they're going to bounce back. I'm really excited to see Kenneth kind of get a bounce back game. He had an excellent game against Arizona, did nothing against Buffalo, and in a game where they need him, just like they did playing against the Falcons 2 weeks ago, they're really going to need him this week against the Rams. No more Aaron Donald to strike fear into the hearts of men. You can run versus the Rams, and Seattle has to take advantage of that, because then it opens up the rest of the offense for Geno and company. And then my third key to victory, so we want the injured players coming back, playing well. We want the run to be established against a team that you can run against. And then my third takeaway is on the fans, actually. We are the 12s. It is our mantra, something that we are known for. Something's got to change when it comes to making sure that their presence is heard. There's something to be said about Seattle's home field advantage. It was part of national news this past week. Geno Smith took the podium after a really hard game, took ownership of everything that he was responsible for. I like that out of a quarterback. But then he's very quick to say, hey, there were times where it felt like this was an away game for us. And that is super, super concerning as a Seahawks fan. If we lose our home field advantage, you're not going to see money lines like you do up here on the screen favor us as much anymore. Because Seattle's home field was a huge thing. It still can be. But I don't know why people buy season tickets for a franchise and then just decide to sell them, especially on the visitor sideline. And that seems to be an epidemic for Seattle this season. The fans need to get into this ball game. Get Matthew Stafford struggling early to get the snap count away. I know he's a veteran, but still, that crowd has proven in the past they can rattle the best of them. And get in the minds of the Rams. Make your presence be heard. This is going to be a week where Seattle has to show our home field advantage matters, and we are to be feared. You don't want to play a home playoff game against us, and if they win the division, you very well might have that, and that might be the only way Seattle gets into the playoffs this year. So you got to be on your toes. Make sure that you snag this division and make home field powerful so that teams fear when they walk into the building. I'm looking for on TV to see very little bright yellow out there this week. The last few home games have been embarrassing to watch when it comes to seeing visitors, fan bases on the sidelines. They are massive, and that just hasn't ever really been a problem for the Seahawks until this season, and it needs to change. When it comes to my overall prediction of this game, I'm going to approach this game the same way as I did against the Atlanta Falcons. Look, is there a reason why I should be picking the Seahawks? Probably. I'm just struggling to find one right now. They're really good at QB pressure still. Last week, they only gave up 1 sack against the Buffalo Bills. I thought that was encouraging. Not a lot to take from last week and use it as fodder for this week, but I'm just sort of going to hope against hope that Seattle wins this game. I think the betting odds have it right. I think the pundits have it right. The Rams on paper, it's a divisional game. You're going to give the nod to the Rams until Seattle proves to you that this is going to be more than a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde theme. By the way, happy Halloween. This team is just so back and forth. You kind of hesitate picking them because you're not sure which version of them you're going to have from week to week. And it's hard to analyze matchups from week to week simply because you don't know what kind of team you're going to get. Are you going to get the Seahawk group that it flies to the ball defensively, that is strong in their linebacking core? I know we brought on a linebacker last week. And he played okay, but he's not integrated into the defense at all. We have Robert Harrison out there as well from Jacksonville. He's not really integrated into the defense yet. He's trying to find his footing. Are we going to have that fast, explosive defense? And if that's the case, then Seattle definitely has a chance to win this game by 2 scores. I don't see that happening, but I am going to hope that they're going to win. And this is a rarity for me, right? I said against Atlanta in my pick that I don't do this often, but I feel like if this is going to be the trend of Mike Macdonald's team, hey, when you're backed up against the wall and you absolutely have to win the game, Seattle pulls it out, I'm okay with having a head coach like that. So I'm going to pick Seattle to win this game. I think they're going to win this game probably like 21-17, something like that, a 4-point game, a 3-point game. It's going to be fairly close. It's going to be back and forth. If Seattle starts slow, watch for them to really struggle against the Rams. Just seems like this team just sort of needs to hang around until halftime to figure their stuff out. And to be fair, -2 red zone blunders last week against Buffalo, that's exactly what they did. If Seattle scores touchdowns on those possessions, they go into halftime in the lead. Who knows what happens from there, but I think the ending of that game would have been very, very different. Seattle just cannot afford to be their own worst enemy like they were last week, and they need to hurry up and make sure that all those mistakes that they inflict on themselves are gone. And if they do that, and if they do the keys to victory, I think Seattle's got a really, really good chance to win this one against the Rams in a game where both teams feel like they absolutely need to win this game to keep their playoff hopes alive. Let's take a look here at our predictions for Week 9. Like I said, we had an amazing week last week, had 10 wins in a full NFL schedule last week. Nobody was on bye, so you were able to have a full slate of NFL games. We managed to get 10 wins and now find ourselves 4 games above 500 for the season. I said at the beginning of the year, if I go 500, I'd feel really, really good about my predictions. This is the first time I'm doing this on the internet. Happy to do it here with you. We lost our upset alert last week. Oh, man, I was so bullish about the Raiders ending the Chiefs streak, and it almost happened, but they just didn't have enough firepower at the end. Oh, man, I would have looked like a genius if the Raiders would have beaten the Chiefs last week, but the Chiefs are still undefeated, still rolling. Let's take a look at our Sunday, not our Sunday slate yet. We got a game tonight, Thursday Night Football. Let's take a look at that matchup first. Houston goes on the road and plays the New York Jets in a game where Aaron Rodgers and company needs to figure their stuff out, dude, because Aaron has gotten everything he has possibly wanted, and now they're going to run into the buzzsaw that is the Houston Texans. I don't think this is a close game. I think the Jets continue to struggle, and I was talking with some folks earlier this week. If the Jets season continues this way, don't expect Aaron Rodgers to come back next year. I think he might hang it up at the end of this year if this team really, really struggles. Houston gets the win big in New Jersey tonight against the Jets. Moving to our Sunday slate, we see a few different matchups that we should keep our eyes on, but let's just go down the list and get through some of these matchups that for a lot of people, the only folks that are going to care are the fans of these fan bases. New Orleans goes on the road and plays the Carolina Panthers, where Bryce Young is going to start for the Panthers. Saints really struggled last week. Carolina's coming out there saying, hey, we want to go back to the Rook. We want to make sure that we're giving him some confidence. I know he's not a rookie, but he sure does play like one sometimes, doesn't he? I'm going to pick Carolina. I think this storyline is going to be worth watching. I think Bryce Young knows that he's got to perform well, or he's going to find himself as one of those quarterbacks that are just going to fade into obscurity. I think the Panthers go out there and play hard for him and wind up winning this game. I just think that the storyline sits right there for Carolina to take advantage. And I don't think the Saints are really that good, which is crazy because 2 weeks into the season, we thought they were the best team in football. The Washington Commanders, off of their Hail Mary win against the Chicago Bears, play the New York Giants on the road. This is of course, divisional game. The Giants are hopelessly trying to meander through a wilderness that is this season, and they're squaring off against the Commanders with all the momentum in the NFC East. I'm picking Washington to win this game. I don't think it's going to be a very big contest. I think Washington's got way too many weapons to fumble and bumble this game away. I don't think this game's going to be close. You might even see Drew Lock come in and play with the Giants in the fourth quarter. I just don't think it's going to be very good. Washington wins big against the Giants. My upset of the week features an upset on paper now that Tua Tagovailoa is back. Miami goes on the road to play the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Yes, we have a whole bunch of New York games here this week, but I think Miami's got something here with Tua. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I don't like the fact that Tua's back. I like him as a human. I just don't feel like that this is the right choice for him, but he's going to go out there and he's going to try. I'm going to pick Miami to get the upset against Buffalo, and folks are going to start talking, can Miami scratch and claw their way back into this division? That would be a huge story for the Dolphins, and I'm going to pick them to get the upset of the week against Buffalo. The Chargers go on the road and go to Cleveland, who, oh my goodness gracious, Jameis Winston is leading, and Cleveland won against the Ravens last week in Jameis's first full game with the Browns. I think the Dog Pound's got something special now brewing with Jameis. Everybody loves him. He's goofy. He's carefree. He's just a happy-go-lucky dude. Folks love famous Jameis, and I think the Dog Pound's going to be behind him. I think that matters. The Chargers just really have not been very good with Harbaugh this season. That sort of transformation project he was trying to work there really hasn't materialized. Just a lack of talent on the offensive side of the football. And I think Jameis is just going to sling it around the yard. I feel like Cleveland's going to win this game by 10 points. I'm taking Cleveland to win at home and to breathe some life back into the Cleveland Browns. New England ventures down to Tennessee to play the Titans this week in another stinker. We don't really have a ton of great games this week. I felt like we at least had a few decent ones that we could hang our hat on this week, and I just feel like this is going to be another stinker. I don't believe in what Tennessee is doing. I don't even know if there's a scenario that exists if I'm going to pick Tennessee again at all this season. So I'm going to pick the Patriots to get the win on the road versus the Titans. Dallas licking their wounds and now facing the barrel of this might just be a wasted season, goes on the road to play Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons. Kirk has a lot to play for, and so does the Falcons in this matchup. Their division now seems to be very, very winnable with the injuries on the Buccaneers, and this could be a great opportunity for Atlanta to just try something new and be experimental with Kirk, see what he can do against a defense in Dallas who we thought was going to be extraordinary this year. They're just not showing up. They're not doing well. I just see Atlanta running away with this one. I think this could be like a 17-point win for Atlanta, and honestly, I don't know where Dallas goes from here. It seems like Jerry Jones is very bullish on keeping his coach. He's not going to fire him midseason, and Atlanta's going to win this game, I think, by multiple scores against the Dallas Cowboys. Atlanta picking up the win at home. Las Vegas, after almost making me the hero of NFL commentary, almost beating the Chiefs, go on the road and play the Cincinnati Bengals. Look, the Bengals have to get their stuff together, and I just think they're just too talented to flounder all season long. I'm going to pick the Bengals to win against a team that they absolutely should beat. They're at home. Everybody's sort of just trying to figure themselves out over there in Cincinnati, and they are also teetering on a wasted season. And I just don't think Joe Burrow is going to go down all too quietly. So I'm going to pick the Bengals to win against the Raiders. I don't know if it's going to take some really positive matchups for me to pick the Raiders again. I've picked the Raiders too many times this year and gotten burnt by them. So I'm going to pick Cincinnati here at home. Denver, with Bo Nix, goes on the road to play the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are coming out of that huge loss against a divisional opponent in Cleveland. They're going to look for a bounce-back game. I think this is a perfect matchup for them to do everything they want to do defensively against a young, inexperienced quarterback in Nix who's struggled to throw the football. His touchdowns really come off of broken plays and scrambling and trying to make something happen. I just think Baltimore's defense is going to have their way with Bo Nix. This could be a game where it gets ugly for him. It could be like a 3-interception game for Bo Nix. Baltimore's going to run wild and win this one big against the Denver Broncos at home. A lot of home teams in my predictions are getting wins this week. That remains the same as the Bears go on the road and play the Arizona Cardinals. Yes, I'm picking Kyler Murray and company to win this game. I don't think Chicago is very good. You saw that against the Commanders this past week. I think they're still an undisciplined team. Their offense just doesn't have it together. The defense could keep them in games, but, man, I keep saying it here on the show. Caleb Williams, he might be a mid-quarterback, an okay quarterback. I just don't see this generational talent that everybody's clamoring about. I think that Kyler Murray and company's got something special there. Maserati Marv is doing some great things on the outside for Arizona. He's still trying to figure things out with Kyler, but I think this is a good matchup to test that out. Cardinals win at home against the Bears. Jacksonville goes on the road this week and plays Philly as Philly looks to defend home turf. I said this last week, and this is a mountain I'm willing to stand on. Philly is not good. Philly is not a good football team, but they have the security blanket of Saquon Barkley. If they make Barkley their identity and just run him into the ether, they're going to be okay. And they're especially going to be okay against inept teams, and that is what the Jacksonville Jaguars are. They are terrible, and I think Philly wins this one big. I think Saquon has a career day, and this team is going to be rocking and rolling in the NFC East, knocking on the door, looking at Washington saying, hey, we're still around. You can't run away from us. Philly gets the win at home. I already picked Seattle to win at home against the Los Angeles Rams. Let's move on to a road team in my predictions getting a win this week. Detroit going on the road and playing the Green Bay Packers. I went back and forth with this game for quite a little while because this is a huge game in the NFC North. It's a huge game in the NFC in general. It seems to be that Detroit is the top of the class in the NFC and might just be the best team in football. And they're going on the road to play, without injury, a very, very talented Green Bay Packer squad. But here's the problem. Jordan Love is hurt. And I think the responsible thing to do if you are a part of the Green Bay Packers is to sit Jordan Love this week. He's not 100%. He won't be 100%. He has a groin injury. Those things take a little while. They're sort of finicky. We saw that sort of resurface last week. Malik Willis had to come in, win the game for Green Bay off of the leg of a kicker. I don't think Malik Willis has it in him to beat the Lions, and I just hope against hope that Green Bay does the smart thing. Sit Jordan Love, take your lump this week, rest Jordan Love for their bye week, and then just go down the stretch. I think that will be a huge marker for this team if they're going to have any sustained success this season. And I'm picking Detroit to win this one sort of by default because Green Bay is hurt. But watch out. Later on in the year, if these two teams square off and Green Bay's healthy, could go Green Bay's way. But for now, here in Week 9, I'm going to pick Detroit to win this one. Indianapolis Sunday Night Football with Joe Flacco as their quarterback. Yes, AR gets benched for the rest of the year because he's just a little too tired. Goes on the road to play the Minnesota Vikings. I really like this matchup. I think it's going to be a good game. I think Joe Flacco is going to win Indy a bunch of games this season. I don't think he's going to go on the same kind of run as he did last year with Cleveland. I just don't think Indy is that talented, but I also don't think that they're talented enough to beat Minnesota. Minnesota, look, they got to stop the skid now. They are in do or die mode. This is a must-win game for the Vikings. The Packers are good, but they're hurt. They can get a game up on them if they win this game. I really feel like Green Bay's destined to lose this week. Detroit's Detroit. You're not going to catch them, but you can try to get a playoff spot in this division. I don't think 3 teams are going to come out of the North, so you have to capitalize on weeks like this where Green Bay's hurt and you can sort of vault yourself into the standings a little bit more. They went from first to third in the standings in a week, and they could have been last if Chicago doesn't give up a Hail Mary to the Commanders. Minnesota's got to have it, and I'm going to give it to them. Minnesota wins at home Sunday Night Football against Joe Flacco in what I think is going to be a really, really good game. Monday Night Football, Tampa Bay. Without their 2 starting wide receivers, but they still have Baker Mayfield going on the road to play the Kansas City Chiefs. I think just simply to go along with continuity and the fact that I tried to upset the Chiefs last week, I'm going to pick the Chiefs. One more week, they stay undefeated. It's just going to be a sloppy, ugly game. I don't think Kansas City, again, is a very good undefeated team. If Tampa Bay was at full strength, they would whoop up on this Chief team. They are just primed to falter and struggle, but somehow, some way, Patrick Mahomes is making sure that this team continues to win, and they're getting these favorable matchups now against, on paper, really good teams like Tampa Bay, but Tampa Bay's too hurt in order to contend with them. So I'm picking Kansas City to round out our Week 9 picks. Well, there you have it. A week full of picks from me here. Keys to victory on how the Seahawks would come out on top against the Rams. My picks in that matchup as well. Notable players to watch: interior offensive lineman and Kenneth Walker, trying to establish the run against a talented Rams squad in a game that both teams absolutely need. Tune in for this one. It's going to be a big one. Well, we've talked Hawks enough here on the channel, and until we meet again, I want to keep encouraging you to keep talking Hawks. What do you think about my analysis for this week, and what do you think about your favorite team and their matchups this week? Do you agree with my predictions? How do you think we're going to fare this week? Do we get another 10-win bump this week in our predictions? Super excited to talk about with you. Hopefully on Tuesday. Work's going to sort of fizzle out here for a little bit in terms of its craziness, so I should be able to get back for more consistent Tuesday shows. But you can hang your hat. Every Thursday, I'm going to be here because this show matters way more than the Tuesday show, and I'm excited to give it to you. Well, this has been it. Your Week 9 preview show from me to you. Have a great Halloween, everybody, and I'll talk to you again here real soon.